Hear me when I say spoilers, spoilers, and spoilers. What's up, guys? Elephants here, and here we are to do a spoiler discussion on chapter 245 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is most likely known as the Battle of the Demon-Infested Shinjuku Part 17. I wish it was named something else. I actually don't even see the chapter title on the leaks I'm currently looking at. But if I had to guess, knowing Kage Akutami, and the fact that this does take place in Shinjuku, the whole chapter does, I'm going to assume it's that. Because if there's one thing Gege isn't good at, it's making new chapter titles. But unless there's just decent, hefty little bit of chunk of dunk of stuff to talk about. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. Editing me, ready, 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? Tyler Hunter here. Fun fact, I have it on me. I keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact, I have a pencil. I feel like I need to somehow incorporate you guys into the intro. I always have you on me. I have a bunch of you on me, like a whole gaggle of pencils, and then another gaggle of pencils. I have like 15,000 different pencils. But like, I always remind y'all, just like I always gotta remind y'all. But with that being the case, we're getting Hakari versus Uraume. And this admittedly makes sense, because in 244, it was strange that those two just didn't even appear. Like, this duo right here, the fact that they didn't even show up in 244, I mean, I get why they didn't, because, like, obviously the computer, please, I beg of you, do not scream into my time of need. But with that being the case, I understand why they didn't show up there, because, like, obviously 244 was about like the Sukuna plan and how they were going to do that, and like explaining how they thought of Yuta going with Takaba to take care of Kinjaga. Like, that was very much a Sukuna Yuji Higuruma centric chapter, and thusly hiding Uraume and Hakari makes sense, and it appears that they've done some midair flying anyway, so that explains why they don't appear. The only weird thing is, though, like, they're clearly falling down at the end of 239, I do believe, because I think Takaba's fight is like 3 or 4 chapters, so I believe they fall down at the end of 239. So them going horizontally away from the ice structure is a little bit weird, but I'll take it, because at least we get to see them. This, honestly, I said it before and I'll say it again, this has potential to be one of the best battles in the series, if only for the fact that we have Uraume. Like, I called Sukuna the most mysterious character in the series, and Uraume's right up there with them. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Uraume is also very, very, very mysterious in terms of like what their purpose is, their role. Why must you scream? Why? You hurt me now. You cause me so much pain and agony, computer. I promise you, once I replace you, I shall remember all that you've done for me, and I shall be happy that you are gone. But with that being the case, Uraume, one of the most mysterious characters in the series, hands down. One, is this Uraume incarnated? Or is this Uraume from 1,000 years ago? We don't actually know. They look exactly like their previously incarnated selves, but we know sorcerers can transform themselves if they've incarnated. Number 2, how did they earn Sukuna's favor? Like, obviously they're good at cooking, apparently good at cooking people, but like, how did that even happen? For their raw level of power, they are, once again, I bring this up every time I mention Uraume, they have some of the weirdest patchwork of feats in the entire series, that like, they're like a sleeper top 10. They are legit a sleeper top 10, because some of their feats are just weird, like generally weird, like Kazu being able to palm piercing bloods from Chozo when he's bloodlusted, crazy. Being able to pull up and tag post Sakurajima Maki when looking that Maki dead in the face with maximum output, crazy. Uraume being able to ward off Yorozu back in the Heian era, back in Yorozu's prime, like Uraume soloing all the Jujutsu High, and then the entire Jujutsu High, but still, like, for some reason, Uraume has just been this character who, whenever they appear, usually something goes crazy. The only arguably lackluster appearance of Uraume is in 221 against Gojo. Like, I'm sorry, unless your name is Ryomen Sukuna, you're going to have a lackluster appearance against Satoru Gojo. So seeing Uraume battle is going to be super duper exciting. And obviously Hakari, especially with the loss of Kashimo in the narrative, and overall Hakari is just consistently falling ranking, whether it be, people now just wholly believing that Yuta was straight lying, which I mean, it's questionable based on what happens in this chapter. Just it really there's so many the thing about this chapter is it has so many weird scaling things and how much portrayal goes into scaling, how much strength matters. There's so many things that are up in the air just based on this chapter alone. But for Hikari himself, he's a character who has kind of low kizzle after Kashimo's I feel like lackluster is an understatement. After Kashimo's lackluster performance, though, we'll just say it's lackluster. Hikari's scaling, Hikari's validity, it's been called heavily into question. And obviously, like upon further review of his battle, like looking back at it, he barely does any damage to Kashima with his punches. Sure, it all looks cool, it looks epic, it looks super gamer mode, but like in terms of damage, it's just not looking all too well. So Hikari, who is not necessarily as mysterious of a character. We know he doesn't seem to have any sort of convoluted or complicated backstory. He's just a guy who loves the fever. I do like that this relatively simple, straightforward guy, if he does have a mess of a domain, is going up against this mystery. And they're like, admittedly, out of their two groups, right, of the antagonists and the protagonists, Hikari and Uruume feel like the weirdly strong side characters, if you know what I'm saying. Like, obviously, everybody knows Big Jock, who was supposed to be strong. He's currently ahead on the ground. We still have no update on that in this chapter, so spoilers for that. But, I mean, we're in a spoiler discussion, and I warned you about spoilers, so we're going through everything. But Big Jock, who is supposed to be a massive threat, he's beheaded right now, but by Yuta Okkotsu, obviously one of the more powerful characters on the protagonist side, literally second only to Satoru Gojo, makes sense. Once again, Kenjaku's most likely only second to Sukuna in terms of the antagonist, so the two number twos going head to head makes sense. Sukuna going up against Gojo, naturally, and obviously Itadori, our main character, naturally. That progression line, once again, makes perfect sense. But for like Uruume, there really, for the longest time, there was no clear matchup for them. Who are you going to put them up against? Maki? Maybe not. Maybe so. I don't know. Let's see how it flows. Oh, wait, Hikari. I guess Hikari does need to have a role in the narrative, considering how much he's been set up. And putting Hikari up against Uruume, it's an underestimated matchup. It's a matchup that doesn't get people as hype as obviously like Gojo versus Sukuna, Itadori versus Sukuna, Kenjaku versus Yuta. Like, it's not the most hype matchup out there for a lot of people, but I think the freedom and flexibility and the general like ambiguity behind both of these characters is what allows this to be super duper interesting. And you know what? You are being such a bad individual. I'm putting you on the floor because I don't like when you decide to be loud. You stupid dumb bubblegum. I don't know why you're screaming. There's nothing open but one thing. And the internet's even off. I don't know why you're being so loud and tedious right now. But Hikari versus Uruume, very, very exciting. And honestly, I cannot reach it, and I do not want to touch, like my feet are clean, but I do not want to touch my computer trackpad with my toes. So editing me, I'm just going to have to request that you save the Soul Society on this one, because I know without my mic, the audio is already going to be a little bit rough. But with that being the case, we see, sorry, I've been talking about the hype behind both of these characters and why I think they're an interesting matchup. And let me just wrap that up a little bit before I actually hop into a bit of their matchup. Hikari being immortal based on his regeneration, and Uruume seemingly enough being immortal based on their ice property, like the eternal stagnancy of ice. Like, you know how a lot of fossils are preserved in ice, and that's how, like, I think there's like a baby saber tooth. There's I think it's a cave lion of some sort, a cave lion cub that was preserved perfectly in ice. So in a way, we're kind of getting a battle of immortals. It feels weird saying that, but that's kind of what these two are. They're immortals in their own way. And seeing Uruume, the person who believes in pure stagnation and ice and cold and freezing, go against Hikari, the character who's all about moving forward, the gamble, the fever, the heat. I think it's a really, really good battle. I'm super excited to see how this goes, even further than what we get in this chapter. But speaking about what we get in this chapter, we see Uruume just... By the way, I have no translations, negative translations. I was trying to wait for Mia, but I could not. We're going in blind, absolutely blind. So this is going to be pure interpretation. With that being the case, we see Uruume immediately open up with the... And we see Hikari is bamboozled. Though notably, look at the sheer size of... Is that wrong to say? I can say it like that. Look at the sheer girth. Look at the sheer size of this ice structure that Uruume does with a... Like, this almost seemed as big as the ice structure they were kind of just chilling on in midair while Gojo and Sukuna fought. That's crazy that with just a light, gentle breeze, that happens quickly enough. And once again, a lot of people think Kakari is one of the fastest characters in the verse because he dodged Kashima's lightning. If that's the case, once again, Urume is just stupidly, weirdly fast for absolutely no reason, or at least their techniques are. Because look at this. Hakari, who we do find out is in Jackpot, he's unable to dodge this. Like, bro does get caught up here. That is crazy. Once again, how fast are Urume's techniques? Like, why are they so speedy? Like, it feels like such a weird thing. Like, notably, I guess I'm thinking like characters like Jack Frost. Then again, I'm thinking like my brain somehow Kingdom Hearts always gets brought back, and somehow it's always Vexen. But like I get like ice skating, and ice is sometimes associated with speed, but like I don't know, Urume being as fast as they are just feels like so out of left field. Like if you think Akari's like dodging lightning, Maki's clearly reacting to noise lightning in the 15 to 14 redraws. You have both of these speedsters for characters getting easily tagged by Urume. The only thing is, though, once again, I'm pushing the Maki agenda, even though she doesn't appear in this chapter. Where is she? Where is it? And of course, I knew it was gonna happen. I made the video. I knew it was gonna happen. But like, man, Maki, she could have walked into Higuruma's domain. I know a lot of people are arguing that there's different things with that, though, so maybe that couldn't happen. I don't know. I need to properly like review some of the arguments that were made in the comment section of the Maki video. I want to go through and break that down piece by piece. I mean, it's too late now. It doesn't really matter. I want to get that video. I want to get out the Sukuna Innocent thing too, but that didn't matter too much. So I'm glad I didn't actually end up working on that. But with that being the case, it's crazy that Urume's this fast. Like, admittedly, you can argue it's a similar thing. Maybe Urume was going to freeze Hakari's entire body, and Hakari... Well, actually, I guess you may be able to argue this wouldn't be too crazy of a speed thing, because unlike Maki or Toji, Hakari's never been established to be able to hop off of air. So obviously Urume, who actually has range techniques, unlike Hakari, would just be able to casually tag him. So maybe this isn't as impressive, but if you think Hakari had any ability to react to this, or any ability to react to this in midair, like he could have like thrown his body. He could have thrown his body to the side. Like if he could have done something like that, then maybe this is a crazy speed feat. Or maybe it's just like, well, we aren't in Dragon Ball. Like it's not like every single character can fly. So of course Hakari's gonna get tagged if he's getting attacked in midair. And we see and one thing I love about Urume, specifically what's implied in this battle, because notably, I mean, there are certain hints at it earlier. There are definitely a few hints here or there about how Urume fights. They're shocking. They are one of the most balanced fighters in terms of like their overall tactics and how they engage. Because like we get a hint of this in the Shibuya battle, and that's about it. But notably, we see Urume like forms ice structures on their fingertips. They go into like pierce Choso's head. They're palming, piercing bloods, not just forming ice walls, but at the same time they're using their full range of ice abilities to cover massive areas and lock people down. They're like they combo into themselves so cleanly. Like Urume, if we were to talk in like fighting game terms, Urume is kind of like an Android 18 type character with like, admittedly, if you gave Android 18 like more range and like a better thing other than like Destructo Disc and just basic Key Blast, where essentially once Urume like locks you down, hypothetically with ice, you can see Urume immediately goes in for the set play. They immediately go in for the mix-up, and we see them punch. And notably, I like how Urume functions. Once again, the stagnancy but the fragility of ice. What does Urume do to break Hakari down? Freezes his arm, locks down his whole area, and I think yeah, they land. So they use their landing to immediately rush in and I love it. They punch the ice. Not, they don't use their technique enough. They just straight slobber knock the ice with their left arm and their left hand, and boom, Hakari's arm is torn straight off. Now, once again, this most likely comes to a factor of Urume's technique rather than base Urume being able to punch off Hakari's arms. It's like, let's be real. Unless we're trying to put I mean, how many of y'all trying to put Urume above base Kashima? How many of y'all trying to put Urume above base Kashima? Let me know. Because if we just take it as, like, that's the thing. I'm gonna chalk this up to ice, and ice causing like a ceasing of motion, making everything more fragile. Like, going to put it up to that because if not, that means if we just think Urume just locked Hikari down with the ice and could punch Hikari's body parts off at any time, Urume hits just as hard as Kashimo's lightning bolts. I want you to think about that. Urume with the ice and the punch combo did the exact same thing that one of Kashimo's lightning bolts did to Jackpot Akari. And notably, this should be a stronger Jackpot Akari. This should be a post-month time skip, training with Yuta, training with Gojo, training with Yuji, training with everybody, Hikari, training with Kashima, most likely. Like, once again, I'm not sure. I do wish we got a little bit more context for the time skip. The more and more the battle in the Shinjuku, the decisive battle in the demon-infested Shinjuku goes down, the less and less I feel like we're gonna get many flashbacks. Like, I mean, we got, obviously last chapter was pretty much all flashback, but for like the context and the insanity that seems to have been implied to happen off screen, it feels like we aren't getting as much context for like how much Hikari improved in comparison to his Killing Games counterpart. But regardless, he shouldn't have gotten weaker. So the fact that Urume can wombo combo ice freeze and to tear the arm off of Hikari Kinji, who's revealed to be in Jackpot. Like, once again, I'm going to chalk it up to the ice. But if you don't want to chalk it up to the ice, because things become more brittle when they're frozen. I know that. I know things do become more brittle when they're frozen. So it's very likely that Urume isn't just punching as hard as Kashima's lightning bolts. But for the Urume glazer in me, if I make a scummy argument here or there, don't get too mad at me. But we see that Urume immediately goes in for the next combo, right? Because they ain't playing no games. They're trying to get the motion in. They activate another technique, but notably, once again, a testament to Akari's speed and regeneration speed. Before Urume, who's notably like point blank in Akari's face here, like though it is impressive that before Hikari can even land, Urume not only launches out a technique, lands themselves, causes this whole technique, lunges in, punches, and immediately goes in for another technique, all before Hikari can land. But Hikari reveals that it may not have looked like bro was successful because he ain't have that aura about him. But nah, broski's in Jackpot. And we see a freshly regenerated hand just talk. I am lucky enough to say that there's not been a single person in my life who's just palmed me by the face and thrown me. But this is crazy. With a freshly regenerated arm, Hikari grabs Urume by the domer and just like dunks Urume. Like, this is crazy. This is like, ironically enough, this is almost like what Gojo and Sukuna were doing, just throwing each other through buildings. Though admittedly, like, it was Sukuna being thrown through buildings. Sukuna couldn't really easily throw Gojo around. But with that being the case, that's crazy. But I want you to note this. Hikari, despite showing this insane strength feat, like, I'm not sure how much force it would take. Obviously, it'd take lesser force than pretty much anything we've seen of, like, the high-end feats in the series so far. But Hikari, despite stunking Urume like a basketball through the building, Urume took no damage. Like, we don't see any steam of RCT or anything like that. No, Urume just face tanked it. Well, I guess, like, back of head and neck face, what neck tanked it? I have no idea what you would call it. What is face tanking when it's not your face? Back tanking? Neck tanking? Brain tanking? I don't know. But regardless, look at Urume, completely unharmed despite being slammed in multiple buildings and completely unperturbed to the point where they just immediately start using ice again. So, once again, this either goes one of two ways. Either you think Hikari's just a pillow puncher and he just can't do any damage, like he has all this raw physical strength, all this overwhelming curse energy, but like his output's just trash, and thusly he's unable to do damage to Urume, who doesn't necessarily have the craziest durability feats. Like, they eat a punch from Gojo, but like, so is Jogo, and Jogo's frailer. Jogo's a Goodwill Yuji victim in terms of like damage he could take. So either you go with that Hikari, he just has like baby output and that's why he does no damage to Urume, or you think Hikari's just nuts with strength. It's just that Urume's just that bulky. Either are valid. That's the thing with this fight, and I'm excited to see it continue. Either are valid in terms of determining, like, okay, does this upscale Urume? Does this downscale Hakari? If you think Urume isn't that crazy, because notably, I've seen a whole bunch of top 10 lists. Urume is kind of in nobody's top 10. I wonder if this fight will change that, if this one chapter alone will change that. I never fully listed my top 10, but Urume has kind of always been a sleeper pick, like at 9 or 10, but then really, like, some spots are like fused together interchangeable. Like for the longest time, I had Gojo and Sukuna kind of at a shared one with Gojo having an edge, but now obviously Sukuna's number one, then Gojo's number two. I think that's pretty clearly outlined. And then like I kind of just folded Maki and Toji into one, so like that's kind of cheating. So maybe Urume was more leaning towards like top 12, top 11, but like I think with that, once again with their weird speed scaling and like their relatively crazy feats for a character that has so few showings. Urume was always kind of just either sneaking towards the bottom of my top 10 or like shown in my top 12, top 13. It's why I had so much confidence in Urume when I made the Urume versus Card prediction video. And it looks like that confidence was for good reason. Now, note, like I said, I have not a singular translation, so I cannot read a single word of this. But Urume reels back after taking no damage from Akari, dunking them like a basketball, by the way. After taking no damage, Urume reels back with an ice spear and just straight through Hakari's body. Look at this. Look. Oh, this is, I think those are his organs. Like they straight, because once again, we don't know Urume's pronouns or anything like that. But they straight tear through Hakari. Now, once again, this comes down to a question of what does bulk mean in Jujutsu Kaisen? How bulky is Hakari Kinji? Because we know he's bulky enough to eat Kashimo's punches, but like once again, due to Kashimo only scaling to Hakari, that kind of means nothing. Like, what does that mean in terms of Hakari's bulk? I have no idea, because Kashimo in base doesn't have any feats on even fatigue 20 finger Maguna, and Kashimo's only other fights are against that waste of space Panda, which he fails to execute, by the way, and Akari. So Akari kind of just loops around and circle scales back to himself. Like, the only thing is, you could be like, okay, Akari should have comparable durability to post Shibuya Demon God Yuji, fully healed, if not higher. And if you assume his stats don't get any better in Jackpot, but the thing is, we know his stats do get better in Jackpot to a certain degree. It isn't just the RCT. He does seemingly get a bit stronger, but it's unquantifiable. You would have to, the only thing you can take is the Yuta statement. But once again, I don't blame people for putting that into question now. Once again, especially with the pillow punching of Kashimo. with Kashimo walking out of their battle with little to no damage. I guess you could always just argue Hakari was holding back. But like, would he be holding back durability? Like the fact that Urume would just, like essentially just picture, like imagine if I just threw this pencil at you and it went straight through your stomach. That's what Urume just did with an ice spear. Admittedly, the ice spear is going to be much harder than me throwing a pencil. But like, that's essentially what Urume just did. If you're like me, and you think Hakari should be one of the bulkier characters, I wouldn't say he's bulkiest. Like, I'd say, I don't know. I wouldn't even say he's like top 3 bulkiest. He may not even be top 4, may not even be top 5 in terms of just how bulky he should be. Because like, at least for me, my top 5 in terms of just sheer bulk, like number 1, Sukuna. Sukuna has to be the bulkiest character in the verse. It's just the law of nature. Bro has some of the most cursed energy. He has one of the highest outputs. He has all the juice behind him. He has a really solid physical base. Like, obviously, all of that, in my opinion, he's number 1 bulk. Number 2, it's kind of like a question of Gojo or Yuta. Do you think Yuta has better bulk because he has more cursed energy, and more cursed energy should equal bulk? Or do you think if more cursed energy doesn't matter towards bulk, it's like how much defensive output somebody has, then maybe Yuta just has... Ooh, I should not have pulled that out. Now this pencil is permanently useless. But with it being the case, does Yuta have high bulk because of curse energy amount? If so, then he has more curse energy than Gojo, so Yuta should be bulkier than Gojo. Or do you think Gojo is the second strongest sorcerer? He has the best stats in the entire verse, outside of Satu, outside of Realm and Sukuna, obviously. So he has to be the second bulkiest. That's the other question. Whichever side you lean to, it's a tie between Gojo and Yuta. At least in my opinion, in terms of second bulkiest and third bulkiest. Then I'd say Kenjaku. Kenjaku has great bulk feats against Yuki in particular, probably one of the hardest hitting characters in the series. I mean, once again, Ryu has the highest output in history, but Yuki doesn't fall under that statement because that would predate anything that Yuki has done. And once again, Yuki has very few fights or statements outside of the fight with Kenjaku, but Kenjaku is able to eat Yuki's hits pretty consistently, even after Yuki starts healing. So, like, Yuki only lands one clean hit, but still that clean hit, Kenjaku is able to somewhat tank. His head doesn't get knocked off. So, he should be pretty bulky. Hakari is weird in that discussion, though. If you think Hakari's bulky, because he gets infinite curse energy and he should have some fraction of that output. Obviously, he doesn't have infinite durability or anything like that. Then maybe. But if you don't think Hakari's bulky, then this feat isn't that impressive because it's just tearing through, like, what, a high grade 1? Yeah, like, it really depends on how powerful you think or how bulky you think Hakari is. But still, I say regardless, Urume casually tearing through Hakari with just random ice attacks is crazy. Like, think about it. The only things, this is once again goes to Kashimo and how powerful you think base Kashimo is, but the only things that were doing this kind of damage, tearing out organs, tearing out torsos, ripping off arms, the only things that were that powerful in the Kashimo fight were the lightning bolts. So Urume, on command, Kashimo needs to hit you multiple times before he can actually drop a bolt on you. And, like, unlike Hakari, where you can make a solid argument he's holding back in the Hakari versus Kashimo fight, Kashimo has no reason to be holding back. He should just want to take Hakari's life. Maybe ask him about Sukuna. That's the only argument you could make for Kashimo holding back. But presumably, since he goes for multiple lethal shots, and it's very specifically his most famous bar, and probably one of the most famous bars in the entire series, termed the volume, this is a funeral for the living. Obviously, Kashimo shouldn't be holding back. So the fact that Urume, with casual ice tosses, well, maybe not casual, who knows? I'm not sure how much output this is for Urume. But the fact that Urume, after face tanking Hakari, slamming them through a building, can just throw an ice spear and it just tears straight through Hakari, like Kashimo's lightning bolt tore straight through Hakari. With Hakari as the baseline, reasonably those two should have comparable amounts of output. Urume's hitting just as hard with ice spears that they can presumably spam a lot easier than Kashimo can spam the lightning bolt. Just like that. So however strong you think Kashimo's bolts are, or Urume's icicle spears, I'm telling you, and think about this, Urume has high tier speed, some of the best speed feats in the verse. Once again, tagging post Sakurajima Maki, who has precog, while you're looking that Maki dead in the face is crazy. Plus AP that's comparable to Kashimo's bolts. Smell like a top 10 character to me. Come on, now maybe top 8, top 7. And Urume's only going to get crazier, as we see, because we see that Hakari takes the damage. But notably, he immediately heals it off. It seems like his RCT is even quicker than it was during the Kashimo fight. Because notably, there was some delay in the arm going back in the Kashimo fight. And there was admittedly, there was much delay once he got the jackpot again after his torso was blown open. But instantly coming back, Hakari isn't even really being phased by the damage, which is once again a testament to his mental endurance. Because, like, even if I was immortal, like I always talk about when I'm talking about, like, Wolverine or Bond or any characters who can regenerate really, really well, even if I could, that's a big if. Even if I could regenerate half as well as those characters do, I would black out from the pain. Like, it is crazy that Hakari had his arm torn off and his guts blown out and his back blown out. Better than Kirara ever did by Urume. Urume might be Hakari's type. But with that being the case, speaking of type, where's Toto? But with that being the case, Hakari being able to just push straight through having his guts torn open is wild. However, we do get to see but the two do start going bar for bar again. However, just Hakari without any sort of hesitation lunges in and lands a kick on Urume. But once again, Urume with the crazy strength feats just blocks Hakari's kick. And I remember these kicks, like admittedly, Kashimo said without curse energy he couldn't withstand his kicks, but these kicks were low key. They were doing some numbers to Kashimo. So Urume easily and then freezing it. Wild. If you didn't see Hakari get worried for a second as he's like, wait a minute. Did I overinvest in my own stocks, broski? And we see Urume freeze it off. But notably, this is something I was interested in seeing. It appears like Hakari's RCT. Oh, no. No! No! No, I just noticed that. No! Well, actually, no. It looks like it's in good shape. It doesn't look like the ice did too much to it, but it looks like that Eve Hikari's RCT responds just to stasis. Like, I think it's frogs. I forget. I think it's frogs and fish. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think it's frogs and fish. Like, you can freeze them, and then if you thaw them later, like that's how fish survive the winter, and that's like you can put a frog in the freezer throughout all of winter and it will just shut itself down and then come back to life immediately. It seems like Akari's RCT and his automatic RCT is so advanced that just when recognizing that it's being forced into a stasis state, it immediately kicks in and burns hot enough to melt through. Because I don't think this is Akari's leg being torn off. We don't get to see Urume move in time to break off Akari's leg here. It just appears that Akari kicks straight through, which is crazy. I don't know how the J came off so smooth though. Akari, did you not tie them, John? And Akari, bro, is that 6 toes? No, that I don't know what it is with Gege's characters and me always assuming they have 6 toes. He has a big long toe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know why. For some reason, it kind of looks like 6 to me. But darn, foot straight to Urume's face. And once again, I know like throwing through buildings isn't necessarily the craziest thing in Jujutsu Kaisen. Like, especially if you go with characters scaling to their domains, you have Jogo creating mountains, Dagon creating islands, Jogo being on another level than Dagon, obviously Sukuna and Gojo being on higher levels than Jogo or Dagon. But like, for these pretty casual motions, like note, Urume here, dunk through a building, face tanks it, light work, no reaction, throws a spear through Akari, no problem, lunges in, with a kick that will stop the mid-motion. Like, Urume did grab the kick, halted it for a second, it's just the RCT kicked in. Hakari's just finishing the kicking motion, hits Urume, not with the whole foot even, just the heel, just like kind of like that. And Urume goes flying through multiple buildings. How hard is this man hitting? Like, notably, it's so hard to tell. Because, like, this kind of, at least in my opinion, just based on how the two are portrayed with their strength, this kind of sells to me the idea that Hikari in Jackpot is stronger than Yuta. Because we don't see Yuta do things like this. But then Yuta goes head to head with Ryu, and Ryu should be stronger than anyone Hikari's fought. Urume should be strong. Well, no, Ryu should be stronger than Urume. Ryu should be stronger than Akari. Ryu should be stronger than Kashima. So technically, Yuta tanking and having any exchange with Ryu should put Yuta above Hikari, right? But the thing is, Hikari never, well, no, Yuta never damages Ryu unless it's Rika, Thin Icebreaker, or Ryu's own attacks. Even when Ryu's on the verge of passing out from extreme damage overdose after burning a whole bunch of cursed energy in domain, when he and Yuta go fisticuffing, Yuta doesn't do any damage to him. So, like, it's hard to argue that, outside of durability, that Yuta's, like, attack potency skills to Akari. Maybe his high output crazy full blast somewhat do, but even then, remember, those which are independent of Yuta's curse technique, that's not a part of Rika. Well, it is kind of a part of Rika, but fully manifested Rika is the curse technique, which wasn't affected at all by Yuta's domain. And mimicry, copy, whatever you want to call it, that was the one that was facility shut down. And even then, fully manifested Rika, launching it off, and Yuta launching it off, even if loaded to full power, would be weaker than Ishigori's blast, and was weaker than Ishigori's blast, which were still most likely weakened from domain fatigue, as Ryu notes that his domain fatigue actually did kick in and weaken his blast a bit. So, I don't know. The portrayal makes me want to believe Hikari's stronger, and I think you kind of, like, I hate to say this, and I know the Yuta fans aren't going to be happy with it, but I think for narrative balancing, Hikari has to have something over Yuta. If Hikari's whole stick is immortality plus punch, punch, kick, kick really hard, like, you've already have Yuta with everything else. And obviously Yuta beheading Kenjaku in one swing is still arguably a better strength feat than anything Hikari accomplishes. But still, I don't know, the portrayal is crazy. Casually booting someone through multiple buildings with, like, an incomplete heel kick is wild. But let's see. And honestly, now I think about Ryu does perform a very similar feat with Yuta, except he doesn't slam him through buildings. He just, like, knocks him into the sky, which Earl immediately wombo combos off of. But we okay, that's good. He puts the shoe back on, which is great. He's like, I cannot let the Jace get stuffed. I refuse. Oh wait, actually, no, I just noticed that this is a double kick. So I don't know how he did this. So he goes in for the first kick. Urume freezes the leg. leg unfreezes, then I guess while the leg is still being held, Hikari goes for a drop kick. I don't know. That's pretty interesting. Though we see Hikari, he puts the shoe back on, and Urume is like, fine. I'm getting sick and tired of this. I'm getting sick and tired of this. We're done. And appears to immediately activate a sort of domain expansion. Though once again, though admittedly that's something I did get a loose translation on. I was on Enemy Stand user stream, I think, and someone mentioned that this was Urume's domain expansion, which is interesting though, because I guess this is when the barrier kicks in. But with that being the case, I want you to look at Urume again. With no steam indicating that they've... Oh, wait, actually, no, this is some steam right here. But you may be able to say, because they're using the ground here, this may just be ice. It may be like frost. But once again, maybe Hikari's just not beating the pillow puncher allegations. Because despite him slamming Urume through a building, going downwards with a dunk or forwards with a kick, Urume seems to have taken no damage. The only reason they're resorting to domain here is because Hikari's just getting super annoying with their consistent immortality. And most likely Urume assumes, okay, if I open domain here, then it's most likely that he won't be able to go into domain. Presumably. But with that being the case, something, talking. Urume activates domain. Something, I forget what the domain is supposed to be called. But Yuta Okotsu gets mentioned here. I wonder why. I don't know. And then Hikari screams something. I don't know. It looks like I assume this is just Hikari welcoming the domain. He's like, go ahead, test me out. He probably says like, you're the one they need to rely on for the big bad. But someone like you, I can take you on. So go ahead, try and cool down my fever. Or like something along those lines. It's gonna be a bar. Like I don't no matter what. If Hikari took one thing from Kashimo, it's that he's going to drop bars at every single opportunity. So I'm going to presume this is one fire bar right here, whatever he says. And we see Urume gets annoyed, but we immediately cut away. Was low-key, like I was ready, especially when because I saw the first leak on Miyamura's Twitter. And then like there's a whole bunch of debacle and where the rest of it was bro was taking forever. And that's how I got to this. But I was hoping the whole chapter would kind of be Hikari versus Urume, but that's fine. I'm willing to cut away from it. The battle is going kind of quickly. I do hope that it lasts after this little domain clash, and I hope we do get to see it. I hope Hikari nor Urume get off screened. Gege, don't let Hikari or Urume get off screened, please, Gege. Please, I'm begging you, please, Gege. Then we get back to the trial. So we leave right where we left off, or we leap back right to where we left off, with Judge Man being like, hey, yo, bring. I hereby charge Yuji Itadori with the slaughter of numerous innocent people on October 31st in blah, 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 Shibuya. And we see that Higuruma, once again, we're leaping right into where we left off. This is most likely, if I had to take a guess, once again, I love how Sukuna, oh, he has his upper hands on his hips and his lower hands crossed. That is a very, for any of my people who watch Ben 10, that is a very forearms kind of thing to do. For Tetramans, for all the people who were just like me when they were younger and scan the Ben 10 wiki. Like, man, I spent so much time on the Ben 10 Wikipedia. I'm not talking, like, I'm so old, I don't think the Ben 10 wiki that we actually know now when you look it up is the thing. I was on Wikipedia looking up the aliens, learning their professional names. But, like, the upper hands on the hips, lower hands crossed reminds me so much of something like what Forearms are doing in the original series, or even, like, Alien Force or Kolar and Alien Force / UA. And even Luma. Like, this seems like a very Luma-esque pose. I almost want to say that's what her concept art is her flexing. So, like, I forget where, but this kind of forearm posture seems so familiar to me. And I love how Yuji's just gripping. He's gripping the stand. But Higuruma's most likely explaining how it is all Sukuna's fault, and likely explain the rules of Sukuna so he can have, like, a fair trial and all that, so the rules of the domain aren't compromised. However, while Higuruma is activating his domain expansion, it's kind of an evolved version of my own domain expansion. See, my domain is... What is my domain hand sign? See, I have an idea, but then, like, someone pointed out how sus that hand sign was previously, so I don't want to do it. But my domain expansion, Horizon of the Endless Yapping, it seems like Higuruma activates that, but Sukuna reveals that he can use domain amplification even inside another domain, even when violence is not permitted, as he goes on to say this, and presumably just confesses. And I love, presumably he confessed in some super dramatic way, because Judge Man's like, "Oh, for real, for real," instantly seems to come like condemn Sukuna to being guilty. Though look at that grin, bro wanted this. He was desperate for it. Hopefully, I'll see once the translations come out. I hope, just like Yuji Itadori, he literally just said like, "Yeah, I did that. I'm guilty." And I'm not trying to deny it. I hope he just says something along those lines. But like the opposite of their reactions, where Yuji was consumed with guilt and determination, Sukuna is just filled with glee and joy because now he gets to test something. And we see the domain immediately breaks down. Once again, I want you to realize Maki does not appear in this chapter. I'm going along with the Yuta fans and just hoping that she's with him or something, because the characters that do show up and Maki not showing up hurts my soul more than you can know. But of course, that's the Maki glazer in me. So like, the Maki meat buncher, if you will. But we see the domain instantly collapses. Sukuna, once again, although Sukuna's upper arms leave his hand, they leave his hips, but his lower arms still stay crossed. And we see Itadori, Sukuna, and Higuruma all engage, and the judge gavel transforms. Sukuna smiles as he sees the executioner's blade. Does it look smaller to anyone else? I don't know. The executioner's blade seems a lot skinnier. I don't know why. Unique, but like it seems way too skinny for what it's supposed to be. Though the executioner's blade, they did get the DP that they were looking for, which is good. And we see a certain gaggle of individuals decide to show up to the battlefield. Ino, Choso, and Kusakabe all land. But then Higuruma seems to be caught off guard by something. I'm gonna scope the scenery out. Y'all won't see me coming. Okay, so we got Itadori right here. We got Higuruma right here with the Executioner's Blade. They need to get rid of him. Like straight up remove him. And then we see, I think that's Ino in the background and Kusakabe here. I don't know where Choso's supposed to be, though. I have no idea where he's supposed to be. Yeah, like, I have no idea. I have no idea where Choso is. He's most likely, like, just aiming a piercing blood straight down from the heavens. But with that being the case, I think what shocks Higuruma here is that he sees Sukuna, who obviously, if they got the DP, they got confiscation, right? Like, this should be the case. But suddenly these slashes appear, swinging towards the two. And then the chapter ends. So, there's a few things we need to talk about here. Number one, Sukuna immediately getting the DP. Makes sense. Honestly, I was kind of hoping for a bit more of an elaborate trial. Like, even if Sukuna played around a little bit, where he was like, well, actually, legally speaking, I can't be charged because I'm that, like legitimately, if I was going to be Sukuna and I was, if I was feeling a little bit silly and I wanted to argue, well, you can't really charge me, Judge Man, legally speaking. I'd be like, my name is not Ryoben Sukuna. My name is Megami Fushiguro, as per the titles of this soul and this body that I currently inhabit. And at the time of the Shibuya massacre, I was unconscious due to the actions of my own Shikigami, Mahoraga. And thusly, I am not liable for any of the actions pertained here. And then when Judge Man was going to be like, oh, I bet he's innocent, Sukuna would be like, I lied, by the way, I'm guilty. And then we could get this exact same reaction. Once again, Gege, moving at the speed of light. Number two, it appears that Sukuna was actually intrigued to see the Executioner's Blade. Like, he wanted to see it himself. Interesting why. Does he want to test it on himself? I assume, like, if I had to take a guess, if Sukuna's feeling playful, what he most likely will do is just tear off one of Higuruma's arms, preferably the arm that's holding Executioner's Blade, grip Higuruma's fist so it's still holding Executioner's Blade, kick Higuruma away so he's still alive, his curse technique is still active, and then just stab somebody with the Executioner's Blade. Just to see what it do. Because, of course, remember, Sukuna was there during the entire encounter with Higuruma and Itadori, so he knows exactly the criteria and abilities of Higuruma's domain. He knows about the Executioner's Blade. So the real question is, why would he risk it unless he wanted to test it himself? And I think he does want to do that. And once again, interesting squad here. Ino, Choso, and Kusakabe. None of which should be any threat to Suguna, but I assume Suguna's messing around, and plus he's likely got confiscation, so he can't use conventional techniques. Though notably, as I mentioned previously when talking about why the verdict doesn't really matter, Sukuna still does have Kamutoke. And notably, these slashes, they do seem like cleave and dismantle, but if I had to take a guess, they aren't cleave and dismantle. They're most likely... sorry. This thing gets harder and harder to unsheath every single time I go to use it. But I assume, based on the motions, and we see Higuruma acknowledging Kamutoke right here, I think Sukuna, this is going to sound so crazy, and I'll see what the official translations, or the translations in general, have to say about this. I think the reason these slashes are still coming out, even in spite of Sukuna likely getting confiscation, is because he can just swing Kamutoke that hard. Like, a series that does this a lot is Seven Deadly Sins. In Seven Deadly Sins, you see characters with weaponry, or sometimes with their bare hands occasionally, they will swing so hard that the air pressure from their swings are lethal. Like, one of the most famous panels, one of the things that's kind of like transcended Seven Deadly Sins as a whole, is Meliodas cutting a mountain in half with a twig. But realize, Meliodas didn't actually, use the twig to cut a mountain in half. He swung the twig hard enough that it produced air pressure sharp enough and hard enough to tear through the mountain he got through. I think Sukuna is doing a similar thing here. And I get why Kusakabe showed up, because presumably he's trying to use symbol domain to negate any extra techniques. I presume they're trying to deal with Kamutoke right now. That's why Kusakabe's here, because with the DP, Suguna should be confiscated, right? But with that being the case, just in case Kamutoke still counts as a curse technique, Kusakabe with symbol domain should be able to shut it down. But the reason it's failing here is because Sukuna has his rattle. He does have Kamutoke, where he can just swing it hard enough to cause air slashes. And those can still do damage. And we now need to see if Higuruma can even get close enough to touch Sukuna with the Executioner's Blade, which is going to be quite the hard task indeed. But overall, an amazingly W chapter. I can't wait to get translations on this one, though. Once again, the main thing that got me excited in this chapter is actually Akari versus Uruume. I'm very interested to get more Uruume scaling, some more Akari scaling, even though they both kind of scale nowhere, which is kind of the fun part of that whole fight. Seeing them fight is very, very unique. Seeing Sukuna once again find his way around the system, also very, very unique and fun. I can't wait to see how he keeps on cooking with Kamutoke, because you know bro's not stopping this quickly. He's about to get to work. And obviously, I'm very, very interested in what's going to happen next. Obviously, Itadori doesn't even seem to do anything initially. It seems like Kusakabe manages to get to Higuruma to protect him before Itadori can even land a punch on Sukuna, and before Sukuna starts swinging. So I'm very excited to see how Itadori factors in. Now that Sukuna's technique is likely taken away, can someone take Kamutoke out of his hands? Is Maki going to do anything? Are we going to cut away again? Next chapter, we're going to cut back to Akari versus Uruume. We're going to cut back to Yuta, wherever he's doing, because he's supposed to show back up. He gets a mention in this chapter, but he doesn't appear, seems suspicious. Like, there's so many things that can still go on, and I'm super duper excited off the Raws alone. So, those are my thoughts. Please tell me your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave the Guilty King in the comment section down below. I would like to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me. Oh, and there goes all the lead. Where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You can also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Some of those perks will include the live reaction to this very chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I would like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dapper the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, so Connor Plays, Redel, 4765, and Greyhound. I'd like to give another thank you to our $5 patrons, Victor, Sean, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, Demex LND, and Igneal. I'd like to give a thank you to our $7 member, Autumn's Morning Lazo. And I'd like to give another gargantuan thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchio, Joaquin, Idem Okami, and China Doll 09. I'd like to give a thick
then a snicker. Thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another thicker than a frozen jar of peanut butter. Thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.